So hi everybody. I welcome to the CHAOSS University Working Group meeting. I know a number of people are traveling today. I think there's a thing also going on in Madrid right now that people are at. So we're getting into open source travel like conference time of the year. So it's good to see folks. All right, I will share my screen. All right, if you could take a look at the minutes, that'd be great. Log in. I feel like I'm always in need of sun for some reason. I think there's only been one day I've pined for rain. Actually, it was between this or if you're in need of healthy food or junk food. That was the those were going to be the question for the day. Typically, I'm in the mood for junk food. So, all right. Yeah, Chris, I'm with you, son. Must be heaven. Um, all right, so the thing I did just wanted to talk. Hi, Laura. I love your background. Um, so the thing I wanted to talk about today is kind of this issue. So I was just at a meeting at Carnegie Mellon on open source, and there were a number of people like from industry and from university OSPOs and open source projects that we're talking about a variety of different things when it comes to open source. And one of the ones that keeps coming up is long-term sustainability of projects. All right. And so folks like, do you know Jim Herbsleb at Carnegie Mellon? He's a faculty member there. He's been there for a long, long time. Probably one of the foremost people when it comes to open source research, just historically. And then do you know Nithya Ruff? So she's the head of the open source program office at Amazon. And so obviously like also has a lot of interest in ensuring that the open source projects that they care about are sustainable for the long term. And so I can't imagine that the four of us have any real answers as to how to do this, but uh, this just seems to be a question that I hear all the time. Like, how do we think about sustaining the projects that, in the case of, say, universities, are probably on grant funding, most likely, and need to potentially live on beyond the life of grant funding, because that soft money is usually not a real option for long-term funding. And particularly with the shifting funding landscape as it is right now, like asking funders for more money is not, not always the easiest thing to do. So I'm really curious if you are hearing this conversation in any of your circles at all. So I'll just maybe start there. Not
Yes.
at all. Okay. You are, David.
Yes.
Is it just like how to bridge past grant funding? Is that the gap? Or is it something else?
Um, we're talking about this a lot and curious. I think there's thoughts about that perspective, and then there's also thoughts about like academic software and how we can maybe organize better so that we're getting open source alternatives that we could collectively fund across a coalition of universities that would
And
be
this is the second one is like software that you use at your universities to
yeah.
ensure that those things stick around. Okay.
Yeah, we certainly hear about that. That's the most common concern, not necessarily specifically moving from grant funding to
Okay.
long-term funding, like hearing from projects,
Mhm.
but from projects who have never been funded. So there isn't anything to bridge.
I see.
They would like to acquire first funding. And then the UC OSPO network is starting the renewal process with Sloan, like in the
Yep.
next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that's a big concern for us is what happens to us after the
Yeah.
next round of funding, assuming that we get it,
Yeah.
because that's also one of the things that Sloan uses to decide whether they're going to renew the grant is if they think there's a good chance that you will be able to stand on your own 2 feet
Right.
at the end.
Right. Because like this funding can't be, it's not a long-term path to
Right.
sustainability. And that's
Yeah.
completely reasonable.
Yeah. And we had anticipated when we started this that the University of California would step in.
Hmm.
We would be demonstrating our value in the first 2 years, and the UC would be like, "Oh, this is great. It doesn't even cost that much compared to a lot of other things. So yes,
Yep.
we can fund this." But the University of California and its funding um, have acquired a new adversary, so not so much.
Okay. Is the hope to move to like part of the state budget, like off of soft money and to get it into the budget, like the biennial? I'm not sure how California does it, but every 2-year budget or something.
I don't know exactly. I think I haven't heard anybody mention being like a line item
Yeah,
in the state's budget, but more
yeah,
like a line item in the UC's budget,
I see.
which gets its money from the state. But I
Oh,
don't know how finely all of that maps backwards.
okay. I get what you're saying. I don't understand that either myself, but I understand what you're saying. That it's somewhere
Okay.
in budget line item somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
But it won't be, if that happens, it's not going to be soon. So.
Okay, no. No, you're being very diplomatic. Um, have you been talking to your projects that are looking for that initial funding? What have you been telling them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's when projects find out we exist,
Hmm.
the first thing they'll say is, "Oh, hey, that's great. Wait, can you help us get money?"
Of course.
That's the conversation. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's
I'd love to hear from Chris too.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really had any discussions. I'm probably one of the people asking for funding for projects. But I guess from my background, I'm actually a faculty in computer science. And so a lot of the work we do explores open source software developments. I do like software engineering work. Um, and then also building some open source tools. But yeah, I think I'm part of the group probably looking for initial funding, also interested in long-term funding and open source software as well.
Okay. All right, cool. I think part of this conversation too right now is with do you know the Sovereign Tech Fund in Germany? Are you familiar with that? So it's like it appears to be a fairly large German um, pot of money that supports just these very things. Um, and I feel like the UK is moving this way as well through initiatives with Open UK. I have a sense. I'm like starting to feel like I'm hearing something. Um, So I part of me like wishes that we could have some larger scale federal support for this, but I just don't know that that's in the cards at the moment. So anyway, David, you shared something in the chat. What was it?
Yeah, there's a organization called 2I2C, which actually I think UC Berkeley and maybe the whole UC network is um, become a member of, and they have a great model for um, helping to try to create these coalitions and move open source forward,
Okay.
and helping supporting with funding and other resources. So I really like that UC Berkeley is joining them, and I'm hoping that the other curious members can also
Okay.
figure out how to do that, and together we can all become stronger.
Okay. Part of
I
me
think,
too. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I think I might be mistaken, but I think they might have a history as a Canadian organization. Um, and I think one of their claims to fame was that they had the entire Canadian university network um, all on like one Jupyter hub kind of networks to be able to use Jupyter. Like this is like 8, 10 years ago, a long time ago. So when the US is all completely siloed and discombobulated, like Canada was able to have
Okay.
where any student could single sign on to use a Jupyter notebook before Google Colab and stuff like that into like this Canadian Jupyter Hub instance that they set up and managed. So it's really powerful, really cool stuff. I want more of that kind of thinking.
Okay. That is pretty cool. Were they financially supporting it? Do you know? I would assume, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I don't probably a lot of grants. I don't know. I know their funding model. I don't know, but they've been around a long time. I've talked to some of their leadership, and I really like them.
Okay. Well, we don't have to, I don't think we have to spend a ton of time on this issue here. I know a bunch of other groups are doing it. I'm just wanted to bring it to the forefront. I know this is on a lot of people's mind, and it feels a little like we stop and start sometimes here in the US on this issue. And it's just really hard. I feel like a lot of people are having a hard time just getting a foothold on how to move this forward um, as a group. And I'm not sure I struggle with this just myself sometimes. Like UC might be doing things, Curious might be doing things. I feel like industry cares about this. Not sure how to organize this conversation. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. These are some pretty good ideas.
Did you hear what the Python Software Foundation did this week?
No, what they do.
They turned down a $1.5 million NSF grant because of the DEI restrictions,
Oh,
which
no,
was
yeah.
awesome. Like really powerful statement. But like they're not that big a organization. I think they're 12 to 14 people or something like that full time. So the turning down $1.5 million dollars.
It goes a long way for
Yeah. So it was a
okay.
big deal for them to do that. But
Especially this year, because PyCon US was in May, and so it was all booked like 2 years ago. And then a ton of the attendees, because we get a lot of people coming internationally,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of international attendees were like, no, we are not coming now, which makes complete sense. Um, and so the PSF refunded everybody's tickets if they weren't able to come because of the travel problems and so on. So they used to, like, prior to the pandemic, it was a moneymaker, PyCon US, and then during the pandemic it was like almost neutral, and it was a major hit. And so to have had that major hit just a few months ago and then now not get the 1.5 million grant is really huge for the
Funding.
PSF.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know this. Okay. Particularly if you're offered to be funded, that's it's pretty tricky.
Mhm.
All right.
Well, and they spent so much time pursuing this grant. It's not
Oh,
like
yes.
the grant came knocking, right?
Right. I
So
mean, just organizing the effort to even put together these grants in the first place is no small
yeah,
task. And then to successfully navigate the review process is no small task. And then to be at this point and say no thanks that's a pretty big deal.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for this. As I continue to kind of have these conversations, I feel like we're still at early phases. I am going to be trying to work with Jim Herbsleb on this, and um, I had mentioned folks from Amazon who also have an interest from a corporate perspective. I think the interests are the same in supporting the open source projects that we care about, and just kind of the different models that we could have for financially doing that, or even not financially. All right. The second thing I had on my agenda today was in the CHAOSS project, we work on what we call guides. So in the CHAOSS project, we have relatively atomic metrics. So just very individual metrics, and say the most atomic metrics could be like age of an issue or the number of contributors or the number of comments on a pull request. You know what I mean? Like very granular kind of things that you might take a look at. Over the years, we've kind of learned that those granular metrics usually by themselves are not terribly helpful. Just understanding age of issues may not be an incredibly useful metric just by itself. So over the years, we've been bringing these metrics together to kind of get people off zero, as we say, when it comes to particular areas of interest. So one of the things we've been talking about in this working group is how to help folks with respect to research software impact. And there are a bunch of different people that could care about research software impact. So for example, one use case could be funders who are providing dollars for a project, and they want to understand the impact of the software that they're funding to articulate how their dollars are being well spent. That's not what this guide is necessarily about. So this one is aimed at trying to close the gap for faculty members to articulate the impact of their software work or their community work as part of reappointment, tenure, and promotion processes. And also put this out in front of people such that the evaluative committees that are also taking a look at RPT stuff, you know, from an evaluation perspective, are kind of looking at the same metrics to understand how well a faculty member is doing. So this has been kind of a long-standing issue in academe for a long time, as folks, Chris, like yourself, are doing software work and you may not be getting the credit that you want to be getting credit during your tenure and promotion. I don't know, maybe you are, but as part of your tenure and review process, we have a tendency on the evaluation side of things to look at publications and grant dollars, not necessarily software work. And so this is one of the early attempts to try to bridge that gap so that faculty members can articulate things and point to a guide saying, I'm articulating the things that are published in the CHAOSS project. And I'm using these to kind of represent the work that I'm doing. And hopefully evaluative committees would also agree to these metrics. All right, so that's what this is about. Every one of these metrics necessarily requires some context by the researcher to do. So these aren't meant to be like red light, yellow light, green light. Like if you are showing some particular metric around new contributors, that may or may not be a good thing for you. So like a growth in new contributors might be bad for you. There could be a reason why that, but it's nonetheless a metric that you can speak to in your tenure and promotion cases. So this has taken a little while for us to get here. And so these guides, if you take a look, it's really just these first two sections are just meant to articulate what this is about. Mostly what I narrated just through right now. A couple challenges that come from using this guide, so we want to put those things in here. One of the biggest challenges that we tried to overcome in this guide was software citations. So everybody would like software citations, you know, so like you create a piece of software and it's cited downstream in a paper somewhere. There's really not any consistent way to get this done quite yet. There are a lot of people trying to get this forward. So at the moment, this guide doesn't include consideration of software citations, but we would love to. I think that it'd be a great metric. But folks like James Howison at Texas, who are doing a lot of work in this area, I don't think it's quite there yet to be consistent for everybody. And y'all could tell me I'm wrong if you've seen something different, but I just haven't seen anything real consistent from a software citation perspective.
I think you're right. There's like a citations CFF file that you can include in GitHub repos.
Yep.
People don't actually use them and cite them. So there's some practices and standards that are starting to form, but they're not like pervasive yet.
Yep. So as soon as those become pervasive, easy enough to add to a guide like this. So this is not meant to exclude that. And so basically we put together 4 particular metrics that that faculty members and evaluative committees could take a look at. So the first one is the contributor absence factor or lottery factor, or also known as the more morbidly named bus factor in the, in the while back. So basically what you're trying to understand here is the number of people that are maintaining 50% of the total contributions. So you don't want necessarily one person responsible for 50% of the total contributions. Hence the name lottery factor, meaning if that person won the lottery and they they leave, what would that necessarily do to the project itself? And now you might also understand the bus factor. If you are hit by a bus, what happens to the project itself? So the intention here is that over time, you're showing an increasing number of people that are contributing to 50% of at least 50% of the code base. Just showing that people have an interest in making those contributions to your code base, that it's not just one person doing that work. And so as part of an evaluation process, this could be an argument that you're getting wider appeal, you're attracting a wider set of contributors and maintainers to the project, helping ensure its sustainability for the long term. All right. Yeah, of course, Laura.
So would this be like you said red light, yellow light, green light, and I'm not totally sure what that means in this context, but I think it might be related to what I'm wondering about,
Okay.
which is this is the whole like the project health sort of concept is like if you've got a project that is healthy in that way, then that is like a pro in your dossier. But
Yes.
is it then a con if it's not, like if you are one person maintaining this project and it's super impactful and all of that, but you are one person, does that mean that it doesn't count or it
It,
hurts you?
yeah, that's the red light. You're correct. And so
Okay.
like all these things need to be understood in context. And so like we wouldn't put on this like you must have this number be equal to 3.
Hmm.
So that like we wouldn't say that's the green light, yellow light is 2, and red light is 1. There may be cases where 1 is a perfectly good number because you're starting your project. It is a relatively small project. Um, but we can show impact other ways as well. So it's okay in this case. And that's when I say in context. And that's
Hmm.
also why I say we don't want to put red light, yellow light, such that
Right.
8
Yeah.
is the green, you must have 8. That doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be fair.
That makes sense.
Okay. So this is just the total new contributors over time. So not just the the number that are accounting for those 50%. So just trying to understand the growth in the new contributor base. This is also a figure here that kind of gives you an idea of those that are active, those that are kind of leaving. So they've been making contributions over time, and that seems to be going down. So we're losing a group, but perhaps gaining another. And so just understanding the contributor growth, not just those responsible for a set of the code base, but overall contributor growth has a tendency of kind of articulating health. Same deal, Laura, Chris, and David. We don't have a number on this. It's just something that is probably worth exploring from a faculty member perspective. It's pretty easy to talk about too, that you're seeing a growth in contributors. Leave it at that. We're trying to keep this super simple, like things that faculty members and evaluative committees could take a look at. And so these first 2 are really aimed at just community, like the people that are involved. So you're trying to articulate how changes in the community are occurring. And naturally, all of these have to occur over time. So it's hard to just do snapshots and say, here is our current lottery factor metric. It's nice to show these over the course of 6 months, a year, some changes over time. The second two are more around software. So this one is called Project Velocity, and it's really a composite of commits, issues, and pull requests, kind of showing activity around this type of work. And so this came to us from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. It's something that they developed and use regularly for just kind of evaluating the projects that they have and understanding the velocity of work in that project. Really, again, focused on like these PRs, the issues, and the commits in that repo, and a composite of that. And then lastly is just PRs over time. So taking a look at the number of pull requests that are occurring over time. And you can take a look at those that are merged, closed without merge, just kind of getting a sense of what the dynamics on the contribution set is to a project. We've had others in here as well. So things like release frequency was one that we had talked about. Things like age of pull requests were other things that we had talked about. But we just kind of ended up landing on these four from a simplicity perspective. So I'm kind of curious what people's thoughts are as you can tell me to get rid of all these metrics and start over. Again, this isn't solving everything. This is just trying to get this conversation off zero. That's it. And we can improve this over time. But I feel like we don't, for a long time, we just haven't had anywhere to start for faculty members to put this in their dossiers when they're doing tenure and promotion cases, and things to speak against. Not like against the faculty member, but like things to talk to in their dossier. Like, here are the metrics that have been put forward, and here I can explain what we're doing over time.
I like having some community metrics in there. I think that that's a good shift of focus, that the promotion tenure it's not going to be on their radar, that there's a community building aspect to some of this, and being able to have metrics to track that and show that is kind of cool. I'm not optimistic that a lot of the research software is going to have a good velocity. I don't think they're necessarily using agile development practices and, having good, solid release schedules and things like that. But if they are, then absolutely, it'd be great to demonstrate. We've talked about this in the past, but things like downloads, upstream dependencies on their software, things like that seem really important for impact as well.
The download ones, as we've talked, that's a little hard to get sometimes. That's all on that one. That's all. The dependency stuff we can get. That we can, there are tools out there like the deps.io, the stuff that Google had put out. So there is that data out there, and we can actually see the upstream and downstream dependencies, I believe, on my project. But again, to Laura's point too, like, dependencies may or may not be useful, because you may be producing a project that is kind of an end of the line project and not necessarily going to have a lot of downstream dependencies by itself. But point well taken. What do other people think about dependencies? Would that be one potentially include here? You could. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I think that could be useful, although is there a good way to track that other than analyzing like all other projects that might use a specific project?
That would be, yeah. So it'd be I don't know if there's an easy way. Laura, do you know?
I know that Moss is working on one.
Okay.
Yeah, Jonathan,
Star.
yeah,
Yeah.
is working on exactly that. I haven't actually checked on its progress recently to see if it's done. But yeah, that would be, if it's ready, that would be a good one to include, perhaps.
Okay. And so what the Moss stuff, I haven't been involved in the Moss stuff for a while, but from what you understand, it's like, I would say, here is my project. Tell me who's depending on me.
I think so.
Okay.
Well, okay, I think it's so yes, but as a subset of the project is, I think, going to supposed to be a graph of
Mhm.
like how all the software is related to all the other software.
Sounds like a big graph.
Yeah. But then you would be able to search. And so you'd be able to say, okay,
Okay,
so
let's
in this big
start here.
graph, here's my thing. I want to see how it's related to all the
My
other
little
software.
on my
Yeah.
thing. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how you would even generate that without it just being like a
In the
solid block. It's like, yay, lots of software is connected to other software. Good.
It's like the old like network graphs when we would take a look at like people involved in open source software projects, and they were basically just a wall of dots and lines, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people in a software project. What do
Hmm.
you know? Okay, I'll keep that definitely open. Um, any other thoughts or comments?
One other thing that I would like to see in this guide, I don't, it's not exactly a metric, but just something to encourage researchers and academics sort of to cross the line between what the way things were and maybe the way we want things to go is to encourage, especially, well, open source projects to use JAWS or to submit their software to the Journal of Open Source Software. And that way you can kind of have it both ways. You can get the citations and you can get a peer-reviewed, um, your software itself, the package, the code can be peer-reviewed and maybe cross the lines of that maybe more traditional method of evaluation. So
Yeah.
just like mentioning that, putting that on the radar, I would love every researcher, every academic who writes some code that is some kind of a code that's going to survive themselves, that's going to survive the project, that has, like legs to
Mhm.
submit to JAWS.
Doesn't it get a DOI as well?
Um, Probably. I mean, you can do that separately, but
But I
yes.
think it's part of that process you get one. So, okay, cool. Fair. Any other thoughts or comments? And the hope, all right, so I'll kind of end here then. The hope is that like we can kind of wrap this up at some point and get it out there. This has taken a while through really good conversation. But then we might want to, as a group, think about research software impact from a funding perspective. And so how we might articulate that a little bit differently for funders. And the rationale for that is when you're making grant applications or even doing, say, your yearly evals, these are things you could start putting it out in front of people from a grant perspective, which again may be a different set of metrics. All right. All right. That is all I got. Those are my things. Oh, you found the moss thing?
Yeah, but I think it must be on hold for a bit or something.
The whole
The
project?
well, the repository hasn't had any changes in 5 months, and the website has a pop-up from, I assume, the hosting provider saying, "Could you pay us, please, because
Oh,
it's overdue."
okay. So that's usually those aren't good signs.
No.
But I think they're having meetings because I swear I'm on a list that
Okay. Yeah, I
so
don't know.
but you know how time is. Like that could have the last one I saw could have been like 6 months ago.
Yep.
How the
Yeah, I
world
haven't seen any. I used to be on those meetings and I haven't seen new
anything
ones,
recently.
but I think there's actually maybe one tomorrow but yeah, I haven't connected with Jonathan in a while, so I don't,
Okay.
I hope he wasn't a victim of some kind of a funding cut or something.
Okay. Well, okay. I appreciate the feedback and the thoughts here. And the just the insights really helpful. I'd like to try to put this to rest, this expert guide, probably by the next meeting, and we'd start putting it out there in front of people, broader than just this group. And happy to start making changes on it as well, and do the dependency stuff if we can get it, and the citation stuff if we can get it in time. So, all right, cool. Anything from anybody else here? Is anybody going to go to FOSDEM? Have you figured that out yet? No.
I'm gonna try, but I need
Oh.
approval from Sloan and Curious.
Okay.
I think I am. I know that Claire chose the timing of the Curious meeting so that explicitly so that people could do that. So I think that path is clear. And so
Yes.
assuming that that's a correct assumption, then I think I'll be there.
Okay, great. It's in the afternoon of the CHAOSS Con. So
I'm on the speaker selection committee for CHAOSScon.
Oh, you are? Okay. So you know all this.
I do know that.
Okay. It's a nice combination. And if you have a chance, have you been to FOSDEM before, Laura?
No.
Okay. There's a lot of nice pre-event stuff,
Mhm.
like the CHAOSScon Curious. And then I think there's a policy summit the next day, which is usually pretty interesting.
Mhm.
Those are really nice, just to kind of put those on your radar as well.
Yeah. Good.
All right, everybody. I really appreciate the time and the effort.
Likewise.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great day. Till next time.
Thanks.
See you later.